This forest clearing eats people, and the proof is in his last words. James Galvin went to debunk the Hoyabachu forest until something changed his mind. This isn't a place, it's a choice. What did he see before he vanished? Watch until the end, because the footage they don't want you to see is more terrifying than any ghost story. In 2003, an anthropology student named Eileen Marks went there despite countless warnings from locals who whispered about a presence in the dark. The tunnel, carved during World War II by forced laborers, many of whom died and were never buried, was said to echo with cries that weren't echoes at all. But Eileen didn't believe in ghosts. She believed in data. Her thesis was on subterranean acoustics and cultural memory, and she had heard rumors of phantom sound loops that emanated from the tunnel in erratic patterns, the kind of thing that drives funding if recorded. She went in with a satellite phone, a digital recorder, and a local guide named Sanong who was paid enough to ignore his instincts. The last call Eileen made was on April 16th, a clipped voicemail left to her advisor, in which she said, "It's louder than I thought, like it knows I'm here." That message cut off mid-sentence. When the search began 3 days later, they found Sanong's body just inside the tunnel mouth. His spine arched in a way that made no anatomical sense. His fingers had clawed his face off. Eileen's equipment was recovered, but not Eileen. The recordings contained no screams, no voice, just what sounded like children humming "A Bicycle Built for Two" in a slowed-down, distorted pitch, repeated every 23 minutes and 17 seconds. The file is still studied in sound labs across Asia, not because it explains what happened, but because the humming is layered under the frequency of human hearing. You don't hear it with your ears. You feel it under your skin. That was the last time anyone voluntarily stepped foot in the Namkham tunnel. Across the ocean in Romania, another forbidden space refuses to be forgotten, though it should be. Deep within the Hoyabachu forest, often called the Bermuda Triangle of Transylvania, there's a scorched clearing that technology refuses to penetrate. GPS malfunctions, cameras refuse to focus, and compasses spin like roulette wheels. For most, the stories are enough. For 27-year-old blogger and paranormal investigator James Galvin, it was an irresistible challenge. His channel, Beyond the Known, had exploded in popularity for its skeptical takedowns of haunted places. When he announced he'd spend an entire night alone in the clearing with 4 motion-triggered cameras, 2 EMF detectors, and a full-body thermal suit, his subscribers celebrated what they thought would be just another bust. But something waited for him. His stream began like any other. Half-hearted jokes, skeptical commentary, playful mockery of the vibe. Then came the sound of a child laughing. Viewers thought it was a prank, but James froze. He stood, unmoving, facing the tree line. Minutes passed. Then he began repeating a phrase no one could explain. "This isn't a place, it's a choice." Over and over, a whisper coated in dread. At 3:14 a.m., every camera cut to static simultaneously. The live stream ended. Police found the van the next day, engine still running. The thermal suit was neatly folded on the hood. But James? Gone. No footprints, no drag marks, just a dead forest and a square patch of perfectly scorched earth that was colder than the rest of the forest by 17 degrees. His YouTube page was later hacked. All videos deleted, except for one titled, "This Isn't a Place," uploaded from his account 48 hours after his disappearance. It's 2 seconds long. A static image of the clearing, and James's voice whispering, "I chose." Let's shift our focus to the next story on the outskirts of Naples. Italy stands an abandoned psychiatric facility that history tried to erase. The Villa Bianchi Asylum operated under fascist regimes and was known for its grotesque experiments on children with disabilities. It was shut down in 1978 after dozens of shallow graves were uncovered in the orchard behind the East Wing. For decades, the site was off-limits, partially condemned, surrounded by rusted fences, and sealed with thick iron plates. But in 2011, a team of amateur filmmakers led by Giacomo Lazzotti, a former reality TV producer turned horror vlogger, decided to document an overnight stay inside. The video, which has since become one of the most debated clips in internet lore, shows them entering through a hole cut in the fence, laughing, smoking, one of them mocking the ghost of little Mario. A child patient rumored to have clawed his eyes out after 3 days in solitary. What begins as typical ghost hunting fare slowly decays into something sinister. At 1:43 a.m., they enter the hydrotherapy room. That's when the audio begins to bleed. There's a high-pitched ringing that viewers say gave them migraines. One by one, the crew members begin to act strange. Giacomo stares into a mirror and whispers, "There's more of me now." Another, Alessandro Forte, begins singing in Latin, a language he never spoke. By 3:22 a.m., the footage degrades into chaotic static and animalistic screaming. The camera falls. It stays on for 43 minutes, angled at the ceiling tiles, where faint shadows crawl across the frame, moving too quickly to be human. Of the 5 people who entered, only one was ever found. Paulo Costa was discovered in a tunnel beneath the asylum 3 days later, completely unclothed, smeared with what turned out to be crushed drywall and his blood. His eyes were gone, removed surgically. No sign of infection, no sign of pain. He had no memory of what happened, but kept repeating a single phrase, "They don't forget down here." Authorities sealed the building again, this time with concrete. But the video still exists. It's been uploaded, re-uploaded, taken down, dissected frame by frame. In the last second of static, if you boost the brightness and slow it down, a single face flashes across the screen. It's not any of the crew members. People like Eileen Marks, James Galvin, and Giacomo Lazzotti remind us that curiosity isn't always noble. Sometimes it's self-harming. But there's another kind of forbidden ground, one that doesn't need haunted forests or cursed asylums to terrify. A silent residential home in a quiet Tokyo suburb became the epicenter of one of the most chilling modern unsolved disappearances, the case of Sayuri Tanaka. She was a retired ballet instructor, 63 years old, known for her elegance and discipline. Her neighbors described her as the kind of woman who swept her front steps at the same time every day, always wearing white gloves. On October 6, 2017, she was seen entering her home with 2 men in business suits. This was confirmed by doorbell cam footage. None of them were ever seen exiting. What made the case disturbing wasn't just her disappearance. It was what was found. 2 days later, a delivery man reported a rotting smell at her door. Police forced entry and discovered the entire house had been stripped bare. Furniture gone, wallpaper peeled back, floorboards lifted. In the center of the tatami room was a single chair, facing the wall. A camcorder had been set up on a tripod, pointed directly at the chair. The footage was intact. What it showed was Sayuri sitting in the chair, motionless, for nearly 11 hours. Then, suddenly, she turns to the camera and says in perfect German, a language she had no known knowledge of, "The mirror has forgotten, but I have not." She then begins convulsing. At the 9-minute mark, the camera cuts out. Despite massive media coverage, no suspects were ever found. The 2 men? Unidentified. Their faces in the footage were perfectly obscured by some kind of light interference. Sayuri's body has never been recovered, but her home was demolished 8 months later, after construction crews refused to work inside. They claimed the air tasted metallic and that all reflective surfaces began fogging up, even when dry. One contractor said he saw a woman in white gloves in the mirror behind him, though he was alone. Some stories claw their way into legend. Others quietly rot beneath the surface of polite society. But perhaps none is more chilling than the tale of Dr. Antoine Morel, a Swiss neuroscientist whose research into neural echo patterns led him to an unmarked cave network in the Pyrenees. In 2008, he published a controversial theory in the Journal of Neurological Frontiers, proposing that human brains emit trace memory imprints, auditory and visual, like emotional radiation. He believed certain natural formations could act as recording chambers, and that traumatic human events could be replayed under the right conditions. To prove his theory, he ventured into the Lac Noir caves with a specially modified EEG cap and audio equipment. He never returned, but his assistant, Marie-Lou Vasseur, who waited outside the cave system for him, received a signal on the headset 49 minutes after he entered. What she heard was his voice screaming, not in fear, but in awe, saying, "I see them! I see every death, every scream carved into the walls like a choir of shadows." Then silence. She waited another 14 hours before alerting authorities. When rescue arrived, the only thing recovered was the EEG helmet, still recording, and a series of deep scratch marks on the rock, arranged like musical staves. The equipment was later analyzed by European sound labs. One technician, after reviewing the data, suffered a mental breakdown and was institutionalized. He kept drawing the same spiral over and over again and repeating, "They're not memories, they're invitations. That footage, that data, that cave. It's sealed now." France quietly declared it a restricted military zone under the guise of geological preservation. But rumors leak. They always do. That Morel's voice is still heard in the rock, repeating screams and laughter and a single plea: "Let me forget." Some places you're warned not to go because they're dangerous. Others you're warned not to go because they remember. And memory, when twisted by pain, becomes something ravenous, something that waits. Which story haunted you the most? The tunnel that sings to the dead, the forest that erases identities, or the chair in a Tokyo home that watched a woman vanish on camera? Would you dare step into a place that remembers more than you wanted to? Tell us which one gave you chills, and which one you think still holds someone trapped. Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more tales that whisper from the shadows, subscribe, because these stories aren't over. They're just waiting